Hey there, cool people. I'm Wade, and thanks for watching Nordbites. In this video, we're going to check out every single armor and monster set and every single DLC dungeon. And that includes Bal Sunnar and Scrivener's Hall, the new dungeons that will be coming up in the next update before the Necrom chapter. And for some sets, I'll be putting in my 2 cents for whatever that's worth. But keep in mind, it's only my opinion based on my experiences, but I would love to hear from you in the comments if you agree or disagree with some of the sets. And we've got a lot of dungeons to cover, so let's not waste any more time and get to it. Alright, we'll begin this with the Imperial City Prison. And for a light armor, we've got Scathing Mage. You're going to add Max Magicka, a couple critical chance. When you deal direct damage, you have a 20% chance to increase your weapon and spell damage by up to 516 for 5 seconds. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds. This is a really good Magicka set. If you got a Magicka DPS character, you can't go wrong with Scathing Mage. Medium armor, we've got Sheer Venom. It adds max stamina, a couple of weapon and spell damages, and when you deal damage with an execute ability, you infect the enemy, dealing 948 poison damage over 6 seconds, and dealing up to 100% more damage to enemies under 100% health. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds per target and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Another good medium armor set, especially if you have a poison build. Just make sure you use the execute ability if you're going to wear it. And then we've got Heavy Armor Leeching Blade, the infamous Leeching Blade. First it's going to add max health, and then healing taken, again max health. When you take damage, you summon a cloud of leeching poison under the assailant. The cloud deals 427 poison damage every 1 second for 5 seconds and heals you for 100% of the damage caused. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds and scales off your max health. Now this is a fairly popular tank set, but a lot of the vet players don't really like it because it is completely selfish. But when I first started out, this was amazing for me, just to stay alive, which a lot of beginning tanks, you need to stay alive, and that's essentially the name of the game. And I even use it every once in a while now still, if I'm doing a new dungeon that's vet or hard mode. Just a great set to keep you alive if you're a tank leeching. And then we've got the monster set, Lord Warden, another tank set, primarily tank set. It adds 1,487 armor. When you take damage, you have a 50% chance to summon a shadow orb for 10 seconds. That increases the physical and spell resistance of you and your group members within 8 meters by 3180. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. Again, this is a good set if you want to keep your group alive and yourself. Can't go wrong with that. You're not going to buff them or debuff the bad guys, of course, but that's just a staying alive set. And we got White Gold Tower, which along with Imperial City Prison is in Cyrodiil. And we've got the light armor, Spell Power Cure. It adds Max Magicka, again, Max Magicka, and adds also weapon and spell damage. And when you overhaul yourself or an ally, you give the target Major Courage for 5 seconds, which increases the weapon and spell damage by 430. This, bottom line, is a top tier healer set. You can take this healer set into any dungeon or trial and nobody's really going to give you much grief. Great healer set. Then we got medium armor, Essence Thief. You got max stamina, adds max stamina. Adds another weapon and spell damage, and dealing damage with a light or heavy attack draws essence from the enemy that pools near them for 5 seconds. Drawing from the pool heals you for up to 5356 health, restores 4356 stamina, and increases your damage done by 10% for 10 seconds. A pool can only be created once every 10 seconds. Now, I've never really used this set, but I know a lot of people that talk about it, and it seems fairly popular. A lot of people go to farm it in White Gold Tower. So a solid medium armor if you're looking for it. We've got Heavy Armor, Brands of Imperium, adds max health, adds healing taken. When you take damage, you grant you and your group members within 8 meters a damage shield that absorbs up to 11 to 60 damage for 6 seconds. This effect can occur once every 12 seconds. I'm not a huge fan because it's not up all the time, and also that 8 meters, you got to make sure all your groups around you, and as a tank, usually, a lot of times your group's not going to be that close. Then we have monster set, Molag Kenna. It adds 129 weapon and spell damage. When you consecutively light attack 2 times, you trigger overkill for 6 seconds, which increases your weapon and spell damage by 560, but also increases the cost of your abilities by 8%. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. Okay, now this, yeah, you're gonna get a buff with your weapon and spell damage, but it's also gonna make everything cost more. So if you like it, you like it, and if you don't, you don't. I'm middle of the road on this. All right, next we've got Cradle of Shadows and Shadowfen. We've got Light Armor Gossamer. Adds Magica Recovery, adds Magicka, some more Magicka. When you heal yourself or an ally, you grant them major evasion for 1 second, reducing damage from area attacks by 20%. Primarily a healer set, but it's not very popular as far as I know. I've never used it. There are better options I think you can pick from. Now, medium armor, we've got Widowmaker. Adds critical chance, again critical chance, adds max stamina. And when your alchemical poison fires, you drop a poisonous spore in front of you that bursts after 1 second, dealing 2856 poison damage over 10 seconds to all enemies within 5 meters. This effect scales up the higher of your weapon or skill damage. Now, I don't know a lot of people who do, if they're doing PvE, who use alchemical poisons. And that's primarily a PvP thing. So if you've used Widowmaker, let us know what you use it for and how it works for you. Alright, then we've got Heavy Armor, Hand of Mafala. Adds Healing Taken, adds max health, adds armor. And when you take damage, you encase the ground beneath you in webs for 5 seconds, reducing the movement speed of enemies within a 4-meter radius by 33% and applying minor breach to them, reducing their physical and spell resistance by 2974. After 5 seconds, the webs burst into venom, dealing poison damage. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds and scales off the higher of your physical or spell resistance. Now, this set I'm not a huge fan of. It's a tank set, of course, and the reason is because you're going to get to take away their physical and spell resistance by other means. Yeah, and I don't think reducing the movement speed of enemies is really a huge benefit. So not my favorite. And we got Monster Set Veladreth. Adds 129 weapon and spell damage, and when you deal damage, you have a 20% chance to spawn 3 disease spores in front of you after 1 second, and that deal 1,557 disease damage to an enemy they hit. This effect can occur once every 8 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon and spell damage. I think this is a solid monster set. To be honest, I use it on one of my characters, kind of just as a specialty character, really. And it's got a cool little animation with it when the spores come out. Okay, next up is Ruins of Mazzatun in Shadowfen. We've got Light Armor, Amorplasm, which is adds max Magicka, adds critical chance, adds weapon and spell damage, it adds magical recovery, stamina recovery, and health recovery. This is just a very generic set. If you want to just kind of mesh a little recovery and damage, then I guess this is the set for you. Medium armor, we got Heimjaw's Retribution, adds stamina recovery, adds stamina, adds critical chance, adds another weapon and spell damage, and when you are within 28 meters of an enemy you are in combat with, and the enemy dies, you gain major berserk for 10 seconds, increasing your damage done by 10 seconds. This is a good set if you're around a lot of mobs, but if you're just facing one big boss, not really going to help you that much because it only procs when somebody dies. The heavy armor, Aspect of Mazzatun. We have adds max health, adds stamina, adds max magicka. When you take damage under 30% health, you heal for 243 to 10,481 health and restores up to 10,481 magicka and stamina. This effect can occur every 45 seconds. This is definitely a sustained tank set and not my favorite because it just takes 45 seconds to proc. And I just like sets that are going to be up a lot more than just every 45 seconds. Alright, and monster set Mighty Chuden. It adds 1487 armor, and it adds 1206 health. You gain major resolve at all time, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 5948. This is a stay alive tank set. Actually, it's very good, I'd say, if you are just starting out. If you get this and you're having trouble staying alive, this will do it. This will help you. Alright, and we've got Bloodroot Forge in Craglorn. For the light armor, we got Flame Blossom. It adds max magicka, adds weapon and spell damage, adds offensive penetration. And when you deal damage, you summon a line of flame that moves forward after 1 second, dealing 1537 flame damage to an enemy in its path and applying the burning status effect This effect can occur once every 10 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Now this one I really never paid attention to until I saw a video actually that Skinny Cheeks did on it, and it sounds really interesting, and I really want to try it out on one of my characters, to be honest, because he said it's a very underutilized and kind of just a newly discovered. And then we've got Blood Drinker for medium armor. Adds crit chance, adds weapon and spell damage, adds another crit chance, and increase your bleed damaging attacks by 20%. This one, if you've got a bleed build, this is your go-to. This is a good one. Alright, and then we've got heavy armor. Hargraven's Garden. It adds max health, adds health recovery, adds healing taken. When you take damage while under 50% health, you summon a preservation of nature around you in an 8-meter radius for 8 seconds, which grants major protection to you and up to 5 group members while in the area, reducing your damage taken by 10%. This effect can occur once every 30 seconds. And this is just another staying alive tank set that helps you and your group members also, but it's only up to 5 group members, so it's sort of you don't want to take it into a trial unless you're an off tank, I guess, or something, but normally you want to just buff and debuff stuff if you're in a trial. But not my favorite because, again, it doesn't proc all that much. There are just other ways to stay alive, and you might as well use your armor to get buffs. Alright, we got monster set Earth Gore. It adds 4% healing, and when you heal your when you heal yourself or a group member that is under 50% health, you conjure a pool of blood underneath them, immediately removing all harmful area effects, and healing the lowest health group member in the area after 2 seconds for 1702 health every 2 seconds over 8 seconds. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds and scales off the higher of your max magicka and stamina. Now this one, I can see you using it as a healer and a tank, but really, I'm not a big fan of it because you're only helping one person, and it only happens every 20 seconds. Alright, now we've got a fun one, Falkreath Hold in Cradle. Now we'll just start out with the light armor, Drower's Rest, adds max magicka, adds max recovery, adds max magicka, gets magicka recovery, adds healing done. When you complete a fully charged heavy attack, you create a circle of consecrated ground that heals you and your group members within 5 meters for 5,500 health over 10 seconds. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds and scales off the higher of your max magicka or stamina. This looks primarily like a healer set, and I don't know a lot of people that use it, but if you're a healer, you want to try it out, let us know how it goes. Right, medium armor, Pillar of Nirn. This is top tier. Adds max stamina, adds critical chance, adds weapon and spell damage. And when you deal damage, you create a fissure underneath the enemy after 1 second, dealing 683 bleed damage to all enemies within 2.5 meters, and causing them to bleed for an additional 3515 bleed damage over 10 seconds. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. And this one's great just because it all the damage it deals, and it's up all the time. You can't go wrong with Pillar of Nirn, one of the best sets in the game. Then we got Heavy Armor Ironblood. Adds 28 to 1206 max health, adds armor, adds some more armor, and when you take damage, you have a 10% chance to turn your blood into pure iron for 10 seconds, gaining major protection, major aegis, and minor protection, but also reducing your movement speed by 25%. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. I personally have never tried this. It looks like if you're having trouble staying alive, it could be a pretty solid set. You're going to get a lot of protection buffs. Then we have monster set, Dama House. It adds max stamina, max magicka, and then when you deal damage, you create a 10-meter ring of molten earth around you for 10 seconds, which deals 90 flame damage and 90 physical damage every 1 second. Standing within the ring grants you 300 weapon and spell damage. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds, and the damage scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. I really like this set because it's just cool. The proc is cool, even though you have to get the bad guys right in that line of circle, but it's still, you're getting the extra weapon and spell damage. So yeah, this is just a fun set, and plus it's good for sustain because it's giving you magicka and stamina both. Alright, now we've got Fang Lair, one of the harder dungeons in the game. Well, the hard mode and the vet mode. This is in Bankurai. When you deal critical damage with a light or heavy attack, you launch a projectile at your target that deals flame, frost, shock, or disease damage and applies the respective status effect. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. I know some people that actually like this set. I've never used it. I can see how I could definitely dish out some good damage. Then we got medium armor, Trappings of Invigoration. It adds stamina recovery, max stamina, adds more stamina recovery. When you cast an ability that costs resources while under 25% stamina, you restore up to 11,350 stamina. This effect can occur once every 45 seconds. I think it's obvious here, this is a complete stamina sustain stat. So if you're having a problem with your stamina sustain, there you go. Alright, heavy armor. We got Ulfner's Favor. Adds max health, adds max recovery, adds more stamina recovery, adds healing taken, and increases the magicka or stamina your heavy attacks restore by 30%. If you're a tank and you're having trouble with sustain, Ulfner's Favor is definitely a good choice for you. And monster set, Thorvoken. Adds max health. And when you take damage from a nearby enemy, you summon a growing pool of desecrated bile for 8 seconds. Enemies in the bile take 195 disease damage every 1 second and are afflicted with minor maim and the disease status for 4 seconds, reducing their damage done by 5% and healing received and health recovery by 8%. This effect can occur every 16 seconds and the damage scales off your max health. Some people use this as a tank set. It's not my favorite, because I don't think the debuffs are all that great, to be honest, so not my favorite, but let us know if you like it and why. Alright, in Scalecaller Peak in Stormhaven, for light armor you've got Jorvold's Guidance. It adds magic recovery, adds another magical recovery, adds healing done, and while in combat it increases the duration of all major buffs, minor buffs, and damage shields you apply to yourself and allies by 40%. I think this is probably one of the better healer sets, and to be honest, you could probably even use it as a tank. I've never done so. Of course you'd use the weapons and jewelry on the tank, but yeah, this is a great set if you want to help your group. In medium armor, we've got Plague Slinger. Adds weapon and spell damage, adds max health, adds weapon and spell damage, and when you take damage, summon a Skeever Corpse, which will launch 5 poison balls over 5 seconds that each deal 737 poison damage to the nearest enemy within 10 meters. This effect can occur once every 8 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Never used this set in my life. It doesn't seem all that bad. Doesn't seem like top tier. But if you have used it, let us know in the comments. It sounds kind of fun, actually. Then we've got Heavy Armor, Curse of Doilamish. It adds max health, adds more max health, adds weapon and spell damage. When using a fully charged melee heavy attack on a taunted monster or an enemy who is stunned, feared, or immobilized, you will deal 1811 physical damage. This effect can occur once every 4 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Now, I don't like this at all for PvE tank set. You're not buffing anything, you're just doing damage. You're not supposed to do damage as a tank. But for PvP, I could actually see it being viable. And again, let us know if you've used it. Then we have monster set Zon. Adds 657 critical chance. When you deal critical damage with a light or heavy attack, you have a 33% chance to tether your enemy for 10 seconds as long as you remain within 8 meters of them. Enemies touching the tether take 145 flame damage every 1 second, increasing by 100% per tick, and are afflicted with the burning status effect. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds. It scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. I'd say this is one of the best monster sets in the game, especially if you have some kind of flame-based build. It's definitely top tier monster set, but oh my gosh, it's hard to get. I haven't got this one yet because I've only tried a couple times, and yeah, you have to coordinate the heck out of that last boss. Alright, March of Sacrifices in Greenshade. First you've got Hanu's Compassion. Adds magic recovery, adds magicka, adds more magical recovery, adds more magicka. And when you resurrect an ally while in combat, both you and your ally gain major heroism for 15 seconds, granting 3 ultimate every 1.5 seconds. This looks like it's probably best for a healer set, and if people are dying a lot in your group and you have to resurrect them all the time. And in medium armor, we've got Blood Moon. We have weapon and spell damage. We have adds crit chance, So when you deal damage with a melee light attack, you gain a stack of Blood Scent for 8 seconds. When you gain 5 stacks, you become frenzied for 5 seconds, increasing your melee light attack damage by up to 2050 and attack speed by 50%. This effect can occur every 15 seconds. I've never used this. It seems like I don't like ones when you have to stack a whole bunch in order for it to proc. I've never really used this. Looks like I don't know if I'd like that you have to gain the stacks in order for it to proc, but it might be good. I'm not sure, but if you've used it and it's killer, let us know. And we've got Heavy Armor, Haven of Ursus, adds max health, adds healing taken, adds max health. When you deal damage and you are under 50%, summon Ursus' spirit for 6 seconds at a random group member. You or a group member can activate a synergy on Ursus to grant a shield that protects up to 6 group members with a 28-meter radius from 13967 damage for 6 seconds. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. It takes a lot in order for it to get the full effect of the armor, and I just like simple. This is a little out there. But I mean, I can see how it'd be helpful, but you gotta be, you gotta make sure to use that synergy all the time, or make sure somebody is. And we got monster set, Balorg. It adds 129 weapon and spell damage. And when you use an ultimate ability, you gain weapon and spell damage equal to the amount of total ultimate consumed, and physical and spell penetration equal to 23 times the amount for 12 seconds. I think this is a great set, and plus it goes with stamina or magicka builds, or both. Balorg's awesome, especially if you're using ultimates a lot. Alrighty, we got Moonhunter Keep in Reaper's March. Light armor, Moonhunter. It adds weapon and spell damage, adds weapon and spell damage, adds crit chance. When your alchemical poison fires, increase your weapon and spell damage by up to 547 for 8 seconds. This seems like a pretty good PvP set because of the alchemical poison. I know a lot of people that use that in PvP, not so much PvE. Then we got medium armor, Savage Werewolf. Adds max stamina, adds weapon and spell damage, adds stamina recovery, and your light attacks made with melee range rend flesh, causing your enemy to bleed for 232 bleed damage instantly and additionally every 2 seconds for 4 seconds. This effect scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. To be honest, I've never used this. It's good if you've got a bleed damage sort of build. So if you have used it, please let us know in the comments and how it went. Then we've got Jawler's Tenacity for heavy armor. It gives you healing taken, max health, healing taken again. When you lose 7,000 or more health from a single attack, you gain major vitality for 8 seconds, increasing your healing received by 16%. Honestly, just not a big fan of this one at all. If I get hit by a big single attack, I'm not going to be worrying about, oh, can I get an extra 16% healing from the healer or myself. And then we monster set. We got Vykosa. Adds 4% healing taken. And when you bash an enemy you taunted, you frighten them with a deafening howl, applying major cowardice to them, lowering their weapon and spell damage by 430 for 8 seconds. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. This one's okay, I guess, for keeping your group alive. I can see it mostly being used as a tank, of course, because of the healing taken, and giving the major cowardice also. I'm not a huge fan because the debuffs I like to give aren't to reduce the boss's weapon and spell damage, to increase the weapon and spell damage of my group. Okay, Depths of Malatar, Gold Coast. We got the light armor, Auroran's Thunder. Has max health, gives you weapon and spell damage, offensive penetration, and dealing direct damage to a target within 10 meters of you. Summons a cone of lightning from your chest for 5 seconds, dealing 396 shock damage every 1 second to enemies in the cone. This effect can occur every 10 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. I don't see anything wrong with this set, actually, especially if you have a shock build. Medium armor, Scavenging Demise. We have weapon and spell damage, gives you crit chance, again crit chance, and when you deal critical poison damage to an enemy, summon the Scavenging Maw, which attacks your enemy after 2 seconds. The Scavenging Maw deals 2,587 poison damage and inflicts minor vulnerability for 15 seconds, increasing their damage taken by 5%. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. I like this set, but you have to definitely deal poison damage. Make sure you're doing that because the maw that comes out is really cool, and I like it for the minor vulnerability. And then we get heavy armor, Frozen Watcher. Adds max stamina, adds max health, adds max stamina again. And you summon a blizzard around you while you're bracing, inflicting 496 frost damage every 1 second to enemies within 6 meters. This effect scales off your max health. Your blizzard has a 15% chance of inflicting chilled on enemies' damage. It's not a bad tank set at all because of the chilled effect that you're going to give the enemies, so solid tank set. And then we have monster set, Symphony of Blades. adds healing done, and when you heal an ally who is under 50% of their primary resource, grant them a reduced favor, which restores 570 magic or stamina every 1 second for 6 seconds. This effect can occur every 18 seconds per target, and the resource returned is based off the target's highest maximum source. This is top tier healer set. This is as good as it gets. This is, if you're a healer, you want this. On to Frostvault. In each march, we have light armor, Icy Conjurer, adds max magicka, adds weapon and spell damage, adds offensive penetration. Applying a minor debuff to your enemy summons a non-reflectable ice wrath that will charge into your enemy, dealing 3070 frost damage over 10 seconds. This effect can occur every 10 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Again, I don't see anything wrong with this set. I've never used it, but if you do, let us know in the comments. Medium armor, Zogvin's Warband. We have it adds critical chance, adds offensive penetration. When you deal critical damage, you gain a stack of precision, increasing your critical chance by up to 177 for 5 seconds, up to 10 stacks max. At max stacks, you also gain minor force, increasing your critical damage done by 10%. This effect can occur once every half second. This is an excellent medium armor set. You're going to get a lot of damage out of this. I would say this is top tier. Then we've got heavy armor, Mighty Glacier. Adds max stamina, max magicka, adds stamina recovery, adds magicka recovery. When you activate a snare or immobilize ability or hit a target with a snare or immobilize ability, you and up to 11 group members gain major resolve for 15 seconds, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 5948. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. This is an okay tank set. It's going to help you and your group stay alive, and sometimes that's just the name of the game. In monster set, Stonekeeper, we have adds 548 max stamina, adds 548 max magicka, adds 603 max health. When you block, you gain an energy charge stack. When you gain 6 charges, you release the energy, restoring 2480 stamina and magicka, and healing for 2480. After releasing the charges, you cannot regain new charges for 14 seconds. Charges can be accumulated once every 0.25 seconds. This is definitely a tank sustain set, and actually you have a better choice with going with Engine Guardian, I would say, but it's okay. And then Lair of Maarsalok in Grotwood. Light armor, Zen's Redress, adds magical recovery, adds weapon and spell damage, adds max magicka, and your light attacks apply the touch of Zen on enemies for 20 seconds. Enemies with the touch of Zen take an additional 1% more damage for each damage over time effect you've placed on them, up to 5%. You can only receive the benefit from 1 touch of Zen per enemy. It's okay. I don't like that it only goes up to 5% extra damage, but if you use this, let us know. And with medium armor, Azure Blight Reaper, adds crit chance, adds max stamina, adds stamina recovery. When you deal damage with the damage over time effect, you apply a stack of Blight Seed to your target for 5 seconds. At 20 stacks, the Blight Seed explodes, dealing 1745 disease damage to the target and nearby enemies, scaling up the higher of your weapon or spell damage. An enemy can only have 1 instance of Blight Seed at a time. An enemy that has reached 20 stacks cannot be infected with Blight Seed for 2 seconds. I have honestly never used this set. I'm not even sure what to say about it. It seems okay. Please let us know in the comments if you've used it and if it's any good. And then with heavy armor, we've got Dragon's Defilement, adds max stamina, adds max stamina, adds max health, adds max health. And when you take damage from a melee attack, gain a corrupting aura for 5 seconds that applies minor breach to all enemies within 8 meters of you, reducing their physical and spell resistance by 2974. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds. This is okay, but you can get minor breach in a lot of other ways, to be honest. So I'm not a big fan of the Dragon's Defilement for tank. And the monster set, Maarsalok, adds max stamina. When you deal damage with that melee heavy attack, you spew a cone of corruption, dealing 1492 disease damage to enemies over 4 seconds. This damage is increased by 10% for each negative effect the enemies have, up to a maximum of 300%. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Again, this seems like an okay set. I've never really used it, but if you have a stamina build, it might be worth checking out. Alright, we've got Moongrave Fane in Northern Elsewhere. Light armor is Hollow Fang Thirst, adds crit chance, adds max magicka, adds crit chance. And whenever you critically heal or critically damage a target, spawn a ball of hemoglobin at their location. After 2 seconds, the ball explodes, restoring 40 to 1750 magicka and applying minor vitality to you and your group members within 6 meters of the ball for 9 seconds, increasing their healing received by 8%. This effect can occur once every 9 seconds. I've heard that a lot of people like this actually for their healer builds. So it seems like a really good healer build if your group needs to survive. We got medium armor, Drozakar's Claws. Adds offensive penetration, adds crit chance, adds stamina recovery, adds weapon and spell damage, and for every bleed effect you have on your enemy, increase your weapon and spell damage by up to 103 against them. This is obviously if you have a bleed build, otherwise not going to do much. Alright, heavy armor. Okay, heavy armor, Renault's Resolve. Adds max health, adds healing taken, adds max health. Whenever you deal damage, gain a stack of Resolve for 5 seconds. Each stack increases your healing taken by 1% and your physical and spell resistance by up to 420. This effect can occur once every half second and can stack up to 9 times. This is definitely a staying alive tank set, so if you're having trouble staying alive, get Renault's Resolve. The monster set, Grundwolf. It adds critical chance, and whenever you deal critical damage, restore 700 magic or stamina, whichever maximum is higher. You also gain 350 of the other resolve. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds. This is a complete sustain set. If you're having problems sustaining, get Grundwolf. Alright, now Icereach. It's in Hrothgar. We've got light armor, Hades Hearth. Adds magic recovery, adds magic recovery, adds max magicka. When you heal yourself or an ally with an ability, gain a warming aura for 10 seconds. While in the warming aura, you and your group members restore 565 health every 2 seconds and reduce the cost of sprint, block, and roll dodge by 5%. This effect can occur once every 12 seconds, and the heal scales off the higher of your max magicka or stamina. This is a great healer set, I think. I think the reduction of the sprint, block, and roll dodge by 5% can help a lot with your group sustain. At medium armor, we have Titanborn Strength. Adds max stamina, adds critical chance. When you use an ability that costs magicka while in combat, you increase the damage of your light and heavy attacks against monsters by up to 1645 or 10 seconds. This is a really good magicka set, actually. It's always good when you can increase your light and heavy attacks, which this does. And heavy armor, Banny's Torment. Okay, adds healing taken, adds max health, adds max stamina. When you taunt a nearby enemy, you tether to them for 15 seconds. While tethered, you apply minor maim to your enemy, reducing the damage done by 10%. And you gain major vitality, increasing your healing received by 16%. The tether is broken if the enemy moves 8 meters away from you. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. Obviously a tank set. I'm not crazy about it, but it definitely will help your survivability. And monster set, we got Mother Cyanate. It adds max magicka while in combat. Casting ability with a cast time or channeling an ability grants you a damage shield that absorbs 5,000 damage for 6 seconds. If the damage shield is broken, you restore 985 magicka, and this effect can occur once every 7 seconds. This kind of combines survivability along with restoring magicka, good sustain. So I suppose if you're a tank, it's not the worst set you could have. Alright, we've got Unhallowed Grave in Bankarai. Light armor is Draurken's Grip, adds max magicka, adds offensive penetration, adds magic recovery, and increases your damage done by up to 330, but reduces your healing taken by 10%. So if you're not worried about your health, this is great. Actually, great for a magicka build. Medium armor, we have Aegis Collar. Adds weapon and spell damage, adds stamina recovery, adds weapon and spell damage. When you deal critical damage with a martial melee attack, summon a Lesser Aegis for 11 seconds. It adds, after 2.5 seconds, the Lesser Aegis spins its blades, dealing 478 bleed damage every 1 second. This effect can occur once every 12 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. I personally love Aegis Collar. It has one of the coolest animations when it procs, and also it does very good damage, so I highly recommend Aegis Collar if you don't have it. It's just so cool. In the heavy armor, we have Grave Guardian. Adds max stamina, adds max health, adds max health. Summon a stone aura while you are bracing, hardening you and your nearby group members, increasing your physical and spell resistance by up to 4430. This definitely will help you guys stay alive if your group's having trouble with that. Not the best tank set, but not the worst. And monster set, Kajalnar's Nightmare. Adds weapon and spell damage. Damaging an enemy with a light attack puts a bone stack on them for 5 seconds, up to once every 0.5 seconds. At 5 stacks, an undodgeable skeletal hand attacks your enemy after 1 second, knocking them into the air and stunning them for 3 seconds, or dealing 2,221 magic damage if they cannot be stunned. Enemies then become immune to Kajalnar's Nightmare's stacks for 4 seconds. The damage scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. This is actually a pretty good monster set. It's going to get you some decent damage, and also it's just neat to look at. Alright, and we've got Castle Thorn in Western Skyrim. Light armor, Talfig's Treachery. It adds critical chance, adds max magicka, adds weapon and spell damage, and increases your weapon and spell damage by up to 372. It increases your damage taken from flame and fighters guild abilities by 5%. So it looks like you obviously don't want to use it much in PvP, because the fighters guild abilities that another player would use they're gonna hurt a little more. But it's nice because you don't have to proc anything. It's just gonna give you extra weapon and spell damage right off the bat. A medium armor, we got Unleashed Terror. Adds weapon and spell damage, adds max stamina, adds max stamina. When you deal direct damage with a blink, charge, leap, teleport, or pull ability, you cut your enemy, causing them to bleed for 10 seconds, dealing bleed damage over the duration and applying the hemorrhaging status effect every tick. This ability occurs once every 10 seconds per target and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Yeah, this isn't a bad set, especially if you like to use, a blink, charge, sleep, teleport, or pull ability. I can see it being very useful if you like to use something like Stampede. Alright, in heavy armor, we have Crimson Twilight. Adds max health, adds healing taken, adds max health. And after taking damage, you surround yourself in an 8-meter mist of blood. After 2 seconds, the mist is violently siphoned into your body, dealing 1946 bleed damage to nearby enemies and healing you for 100% of the damage done. This effect can occur once every 8 seconds and scales off your max health. Now, as far as staying alive, I put Crimson Twilight right up there with Leeching. If you combine the two, it's nearly impossible to die. I mean, the only thing that's really going to get you is a one-shot. Otherwise, you're just going to be constantly healing. Alright, monster set. Lady Thorn adds 1206 max health. Casting an ability that costs health spawns a blood ball for 10 seconds. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. You or an ally near the blood ball can activate the Sanguine Burst synergy, dealing 2,879 disease damage to nearby enemies and applying Major Maim for 8 seconds, decreasing their damage done by 10%. Enemies can only receive Major Maim from Sanguine Burst once every 20 seconds. The damage scales off the synergy activator's max health. This should be good for a healer or a tank, especially if your group is having trouble staying alive. Alright, Stone Garden from Blackreach. We have light armor, elemental catalyst. Adds max magicka, adds crit chance, adds max magicka. Whenever you deal flame shock or frost damage, you apply a stack of flame shock or frost weakness to the enemy for 3 seconds. Each stack of an elemental weakness increases their critical damage taken by 5%. An enemy can only have 1 stack of elemental weakness at a time. Yeah, this is a great set. You can use it, for DPS, or you could even do tank. Honestly, if you use the weapon and jewelry. Just a solid all-around set for getting more damage. And medium armor, Kraeglin's Howl. Adds crit chance, adds stamina recovery, adds weapon and spell damage. After an enemy you recently damaged dies, you let out a howl, granting 3 allies within 15 meters the Heed the Call synergy. Activating the synergy gives you and the activator a 12 ultimate. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds. And as long as somebody's activating that synergy, this is a decent set. You just got to make sure that that's happening, and plus it helps if you used your ultimate ability a lot. And heavy armor, Arcassus' Genius. Adds max health, adds armor, adds max health. Whenever you drink a potion while in combat, you and 3 group members gain up to 44 ultimate. This effect can occur once every 30 seconds. This ain't bad, actually, because as a tank, of course, you're going to be drinking a lot to help with that sustain, drinking those potions. And so if you're giving your group ultimate, that's just all the better. The monster set Stone Husk. It adds crit chance. Your heavy attacks tether you to enemies for 5 seconds as long as you remain within 12 meters of them. Enemies touching the tether take physical damage every 1 second, and you gain a stack of Husk Strain up to 15 stacks. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds and scales up the higher of your weapon and spell damage. When the tether ends, you consume the stacks and gain 30 weapon and spell damage per stack for 5 seconds. Now, to be honest, I've never used this, so please let us know in the comments if you have. It seems pretty decent for a DPS set. I'm not sure. But like I said, if you've used it, please let us know, and let us know why it works so well for you. And we've got Black Drake Villa in the Gold Coast. This is probably one of my favorite dungeons for some reason. Even though I've done it a bazillion times to farm Kinra and Drakes. For light armor, we have True Sworn Fury, adds crit chance, adds weapon and spell damage, adds max magicka, adds crit chance, and increases your critical damage by up to 4%. While in combat, this bonus doubles when you are under 75% health and quadruples when you are under 50% health. Not a bad set, not bad at all, not top tier, but when you get low on health, you're gonna be dishing out some serious damage. Medium armor, this is one of the best. Kinra's Wrath, adds weapon and spell damage, crit chance, weapon and spell damage. Dealing damage with a light or heavy attack grants you a stack of Burning Heart for 5 seconds, up to 5 stacks. When you have 5 stacks, you generate an Aura of Wrath, granting you Major Berserk, increasing your damage done by 10%. While you have an Aura of Wrath, allies within 12 meters of you gain Minor Berserk, increasing their damage done by 5%. This is probably one of the top trial sets by far. You're increasing damage for yourself and your group. You just got to make sure you're doing a lot of light and heavy attacking. It usually works best if it with a light attack build. And heavy armor, Drake's Rush. It adds max health, adds max stamina, And when you bash an enemy, you and up to 3 group members within 15 meters of you gain major heroism for 12 seconds, granting you 3 ultimate every 1.5 seconds. This effect can occur once every 18 seconds. This is a great tank set if you're just doing dungeons, not trial of course, but for dungeons it's excellent. You're getting your group a lot of ultimate. Monster set Encradus' Behemoth adds max magicka. Dealing flame damage to an enemy grants you Behemoth's aura for 12 seconds that reaches up to 12 meters. You and up to 11 group members in the aura reduce flame damage taken by 5%. Enemies in the aura increase their flame damage taken by 5%. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. This set is absolutely wonderful. If you have a lot of magicka builds that are dealing flame damage, you guys are just going to rock it. And this is absolutely one of the best tank sets in the game. And on to the Cauldren in Deshawn. Light armor, Unleashed Ritualist. Adds max magicka, and max magicka again. Dealing damage to an enemy, applies Ritualist Mark to them for 10 seconds. Enemies with your Ritualist Mark take an additional 0 to 16% damage from your summoned pets. Not too many pet armor sets in the game, so this is a good one if you do use a lot of pets, and it's also great for magic sustain if you have a magical build. We got medium armor, Dagon's Dominion. Adds weapon and spell damage, adds max stamina, adds weapon and spell damage, adds weapon and spell damage to your area effect abilities. So if you have a lot of area of effect abilities going on, this is going to definitely help your damage. And heavy armor, Full Killer's Ward. Adds armor, adds max health. Activating block while in combat places a damage shield on you and up to 3 group members within 18 meters for 2 seconds that absorbs up to 4,000 direct damage. If a damage shield breaks, the wearer of the shield restores up to 5680 magic and stamina. This effect can occur once every 30 seconds if a damage shield is broken. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds if no damage shields are broken. This is actually a really good tank set. The only drawback is that if one of those shields are broken, it would proc every 30 seconds. Take away that feature and this would be excellent for any tank. The monster set Baron Zadris. Adds 548 max stamina, 548 max magicka, and 603 health. Applying a status effect to an enemy grants you a stack of Zadris' Ambition for 10 seconds up to 3 stacks max. When you gain 3 stacks, these stacks are removed. and you gain 4 ultimate. On gaining ultimate, you cannot gain additional stacks of Zaldrish's Ambition for 1 second. I really like this set a lot. Plus it looks cool, just the helmet. Anyway, this is great for getting you lots of ultimate, and actually I combine this with Sax Heal, so that way when I unleash my ultimate, it's going to give ultimate to all my other group members. I really like Zaldrish. Alright, the Dread Cellar. Light armor, Scorian's Feast, adds max magicka, adds max magicka recovery, adds weapon and spell damage. When you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack, you gain an imbued aura for 10 seconds, granting you and up to 3 other group members up to 307 magicka and stamina recovery. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds. If you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack with an imbued aura active, consume it and gain an overflow aura for 10 seconds, granting you and up to 3 other group members up to 307 weapon and spell damage. This is really good, I would say, for a healer set, actually. Excellent. It's got a lot of buffs going on, so if you're a healer, try out Scorian's Feast. Medium armor, Rush of Agony. You've got stamina recovery, weapon and spell damage, offensive penetration. When you deal direct damage with a blink, charge, leap, teleport, or pull ability, pull enemies within 10 meters to you. After 2 seconds, deal 1705 physical damage to all enemies within 7 meters. This effect can occur once every 8 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. The pull will not apply crowd control immunity to a target. I've never used this. It looks good. The penetration seems like it'd be good with PvP. And if you're using something like Stampede, I could see it being a very viable armor set. Heavy armor, Crimson's Oath Rive, adds armor, adds max health, adds armor. And casting an ability, drinking a potion, or using a potion that applies a major or minor buff to yourself or an ally, sends a wave of energy that reduces the armor of nearby enemies within 12 meters by up to 3541 for 15 seconds. This effect can occur once every 12 seconds and will only occur if an enemy is within range. Now, I love this set because your group is obviously going to damage the enemies more, and I love combining it with Yulnagren because your group is going to dish out some severe damage with them. And monster set, Magma Incarnate. Adds magic recovery, adds stamina recovery. When you heal yourself or a group member with a single target heal ability, grant the lowest health group member within 28 meters minor courage and minor resolve, increasing their weapon and spell damage by 215 and armor by 2974 for 10 seconds. Daedric energy will then bounce to a nearby group member within 8 meters, up to 3 times, applying minor courage and minor resolve for 10 seconds. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. This actually I do use on some healers and tanks that I have. Now, it's only good really for dungeons, but it's very good for giving your group extra damage and also extra protection. Okay, Red Petal Bastian. Light armor, we've got Thundercall. Adds offensive penetration, adds weapon and spell damage. Again, weapon and spell damage. Dealing damage with a fully charged heavy attack calls a bolt of lightning at your target, dealing 467 shock damage and leaving a 4-meter lightning crater at their location for 7 seconds, dealing 467 shock damage per second to enemies inside. This effect can occur once every 12 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Never used it, to be honest. Sounds pretty decent for a shock build, though. And medium armor, Grizzly Gourmet. This is kind of a funny one. Adds max stamina, adds weapon and spell damage, adds offensive penetration, adds stamina. Dealing light attack damage grants you a stack of Baker's Delight for 5 seconds. When you gain 3 stacks, you create a sweet roll next to your target for 5 seconds. If you or an ally touches the sweet roll, both you and your ally gain one of the following effects. You restore health, magicka, and stamina. You gain Empower for 10 seconds, for 10 seconds, and you gain Major Force for 10 seconds. This effect can occur once every 2 seconds. I've never used this, but I've always wanted to. It just seems like a lot of work in order to get the sweet roll to appear and then go grab it. This just seems like an entertaining set. And heavy armor, Silver Roast Vigil. Maximum adds max stamina, adds max health, adds max stamina. When you block, gain a stack of Realm Shaper for 15 seconds, gaining up to 1 stack every 0.5 seconds. When you reach 3 stacks, you consume them and launch necrotic energy at your attacker, dealing 326 magic damage and applying Major Maim for 12 seconds. reducing the damage done by 10%. Once you fire the necrotic energy, you cannot gain additional stacks of Realm Shaper for 12 seconds. Damage scales off your max health. Not a big fan of this one. It's just like it's got a lot going on, and all you're doing is dealing damage. It's because it's more of a tank set, and if you're a tank, you just want to buff really. Okay, monster set, Prior Theoric. Adds weapon and spell damage. Dealing direct damage with an area of effectability creates a 6 meter shadowy whirlwind below your enemy for 7 seconds. Enemies within the whirlwind take 283 physical damage each second and increase their damage taken from your area of effectabilities by 5%. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. This isn't top tier, but I actually use it every once in a while in some of my DPS guys. Not sure why I like it so much. It sounds cool, and it's not too shabby with the offensive damage you get. All right, Coral Aerie in Somerset. Light armor, Malagalag's Maelstrom. Adds max magicka, adds healing done, adds weapon and spell damage. When you overheal yourself or a group member with a direct heal, you apply Malagalag's Maelstrom to the target for 6 seconds, dealing 33% of the overwhelming amount, up to a maximum of 3,300 as shock damage once every 1 second to enemies within 7 meters. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. I'll be honest with you, I've only done Coral Aerie once when it first came out, but I wasn't impressed really with the armor set, so I felt really no need to do it anymore. I just wanted to get the achievement. So really with all of these, I don't have too much of an opinion on because I've never used them and I've never even researched them that much. So if you use any, please do let us know in the comments. And medium armor, Griffin's Reprisal. We have crit chance, offensive penetration adds no more crit chance. When you deal critical damage, you or an ally can activate the Griffin's Reprisal on the enemy within the next 8 seconds, causing a small griffin to fly by and deal 4758 bleed damage over 10 seconds to enemies within 5 meters. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds and scales off the higher of the synergy activator's weapon or spell damage. And again, this looks like one of those synergy sets where you create a synergy and someone can activate it. I don't really like those too much because you have to depend on someone else. All right, heavy armor, Glacial Guardian. Adds armor, adds max stamina, adds health recovery. When you block, tether the enemy if they are within 8 meters of you for 8 seconds. While tethered, you deal 256 frost damage every second to enemies touching the tether and cause them to have a 200% increased status effect chance. The tether breaks if the target moves more than 12 meters away. This effect can occur once every 12 seconds, and the damage scales off your max health. I'm just not a fan of sets really that use a tether. It's just kind of more babysitting, and you have to just make sure the tether is touching people. Monster set, Cargeta. Adds max magicka and adds max stamina, and on dealing damage with a heavy attack, create a 6 meter whirlwind that slowly moves forward for 8 seconds, growing by 3 meters every 3 seconds. Enemies within the whirlwind take 150 shock damage and 150 physical damage every second. Allies within the whirlwind reduce their magic and stamina costs by 10%. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds, and the damage scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Now, I can see this is a viable tank set, because you're going to buff your group. You're going to give them sustain their magic and stamina by reducing the costs of their abilities. And Shipwright's Regret in Rivenspire. Light armor, Storm Curse Revenge. Adds max magicka, adds weapon and spell damage, adds offensive penetration. When you deal shock damage, you have a 15% chance to deal 433 shock damage to the enemy and up to 2 other enemies within 5 meters. This effect scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. This is pretty basic, straightforward. If you deal a lot of shock damage, this is probably going to help you. Medium armor, Spriggan's Vigorer. Adds crit chance, adds max stamina, adds weapon and spell damage. And when you deal critical damage, restore up to 100 stamina and gain a stack of wild growth for 5 seconds, increasing your max stamina by up to 222. This effect can stack up to 10 times and can occur once every 0.5 seconds. So if you are having trouble sustaining your stamina, try out Spriggan's Vigorer. And heavy armor, Turning Tide. Adds max health, adds max stamina, adds max health. And when you block, you gain flowing water for 10 seconds, causing your next bash attack to deal 2-2-2-3 magic damage to up to 6 enemies in a 5 by 10 meter line. and apply major vulnerability for 10 seconds, increasing their damage taken by 10%. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds and scales off your max health. This is a great tank set. Top tier. I use it on a lot of my builds. And if you're wearing this and using it correctly, your group's gonna do a lot of damage. The monster set, we've got Nazare, adds max health. And when you use an ultimate ability, the closest 6 enemies within 12 meters have all major debuffs and minor debuffs applied to them, extended by 1 second per 20 ultimate spent. This effect can occur once every 30 seconds per target. Again, this is an excellent tank set. Highly recommend it. I use it on a lot of my builds, and you're just going to allow your group to damage the enemies more for a longer period of time. Here we have Earthen Root Enclave. In High Isle, light armor is Stones Accord, adds max magicka, adds healing done, adds max magicka. On heal with an area of effect, apply minor berserk and minor resolve to healed allies for 4 seconds. If a healed ally already has minor berserk or minor resolve from Stones Accord, restore up to 550 magicka. The restore can occur once every 5 seconds. This is a great healer set. I have it on a few of my healers. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, it's good for getting your group some more damage, and it's also good for helping their sustain. Medium armor, Rage of the Ursoc, adds offensive penetration, adds crit chance. When you deal damage with a heavy attack, create a 12-meter area for 12 seconds that grants empower to allies inside, increasing the damage of their heavy attacks against monsters by 80%. This effect can occur once every 8 seconds. Honestly, I've never used it. That seems pretty decent to me. And if you have used this, please let us know in the comments whether it's awesome or if it sucks. And heavy armor, Deeproot Zeal, adds stamina, adds magicka, adds health. When you deal direct damage to a taunted target, restore up to 525 stamina and magicka. This effect can occur once every 2 seconds. This is a great sustain set for a tank. If you're having trouble sustaining, Deeproot Zeal is your go-to. The monster set, Archdruid Deverick. Adds offensive penetration, and when you deal damage with a heavy attack after 1.2 seconds, deal 650 shock damage to up to 6 enemies within a 7-meter cone on your target, applying major vulnerability to them for 7 seconds, increasing the damage enemies take by 10%. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon and spell damage. I love this set. I use it on my best tanks. You're just letting your group deal even more damage. And Graven Deep in High Isle. Light armor, Grave Inevitability, adds crit chance, adds weapon and spell damage, adds crit chance. Dealing damage with a light or heavy attack grants you a stack of Remorseless for 5 seconds, up to 5 stacks, up to once every 0.5 seconds. While you have 5 stacks, you generate an Aura of Force, granting you major force, increasing your crit damage by 20%. While you have an Aura of Focus, allies within 12 meters of you gain minor force, increasing their crit damage by 10%. I really like this set a lot. It's just like Kinra's, except you're getting major and minor force instead. So it's a great trial set, I think. It's great for actually anything. The medium armor, Phylactery's Grasp, adds weapon and spell damage, adds crit chance. On light attack critical damage, you apply Withered Soul, dealing 1500 disease damage over 10 seconds. On light attack critical damage on an enemy with Withered Soul, restore up to 575 stamina. Withered Soul can occur once every 10 seconds, and the damage scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. And a nice bonus is you're going to help your stamina sustain. And heavy armor, Pangrit Denmother, adds healing taken, adds armor, adds health recovery, adds max stamina. When you block, you win up to 3 group members within 12 meters, gain minor courage for 10 seconds, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 215. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds. This is a great tank set if you're doing dungeons. Excellent. All you're doing is giving your group more damage whenever you block. The monster set, Euphotic Gatekeeper, adds stamina recovery. When you use roll dodge, create a Hadolid Husk after you roll. While within 5 meters of the Hadolid Husk, it will absorb all direct damage attacks against you. After 1 second, the Hadolid Husk explodes, dealing 1155 poison damage to all enemies within 5 meters. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. This thing just seems wild to me. I don't roll dodge a whole heck of a lot, so it really wouldn't do me any good. It just seems like you gotta kind of do a lot in order to get it to proc. So this is one of those sets I've never used, and I don't see myself using in the near future, so let us know if you do. Alright, now we are into the dungeons that have not come out yet. They'll be coming out in the next update. Bal Sunnar in Stonefalls. We've got light armor, Right Master's Bond, adds magic recovery, adds healing done, adds max magicka. Healing an ally within 12 meters with a direct heal creates a 15-meter tether between you for 10 seconds. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. You and allies touching the tether are healed for 981 health every second, scaling up the higher of your max magicka or stamina. If your ally is overhealed by the tether, they gain minor heroism for 1.5 seconds. This seems like a really good healer set to me, because you're gonna heal your group, and if you overheal someone, they're gonna get minor heroism. Great healer set from what it looks like. And medium armor. Nyx's Hound's Howl adds weapon and spell damage. Weapon and spell damage. Weapon and spell damage again. And completing a fully charged heavy attack applies major cowardice to your target for 1 second per 1,000 weapon damage you have, lowering their weapon and spell damage by 430. You then gain major courage for the same duration, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 430. This effect can occur once every 12 seconds. Well, it looks like you're going to get quite a bit of weapon and spell damage, so if you want a build like that, you might want to try Nyx's Hound's Howl when it comes out. Heavy armor, Telvanni Enforcer, adds maximum stamina, adds max health, adds max magicka. While bracing, increase your magical recovery by 369. While you're not bracing, increase your stamina recovery by 369. This seems like a really good sustain set. I can't wait to try it out actually on some of my tanks that have trouble sustaining. The monster set, Roska the Warped, adds stamina recovery, adds magical recovery, adds health recovery. And each second you're in combat, you gain a stack of Dark Light up to 30 stacks max. Each stack of Dark Light increases your stamina recovery, magic recovery, and health recovery by 8. Each second you are out of combat, you lose a stack of Dark Light. Again, this is a excellent sustain set, it looks like, for a tank. I don't know if it'll be as good as Engine Guardian, but I look forward to trying it out. Okay, and the final DLC dungeon, Scrivener's Hall, that will be coming out in the update. It's in the Rift. And just a reminder, these last two dungeons that haven't come out yet, I'm sure they're going to have some nerfs or buffs. So the stats that they have right now are probably going to be off by the time it comes out, or even after the first few weeks. But anyway, light armor, we've got Runecarver's Blaze, adds weapon and spell damage, adds weapon and spell damage, adds offensive penetration, and your damage over time effects deal an additional 395 flame damage on the third damage tick. The damage scales off your weapon or spell damage and always applies the burning status effect. This looks like a mad, crazy cool set, because if you lay down a bunch of damage over time effects, your damage is going to increase like nuts. I can't wait to try this one out. Alright, medium armor, Apocryphal Inspiration, adds crit chance, adds stamina recovery, adds weapon and spell damage. You and your group members within 28 meters of you gain major fortitude, major intellect, and major endurance, increasing your health recovery, magic recovery, and stamina recovery by 30%. Now, actually, this seems more of like a healer or tank set. But yeah, this will be interesting to try out, to say the least. And then we got heavy armor, Abyssal Brace. Adds max stamina, adds max stamina, adds max health, adds max health. And while you are bracing, you and group members within 12 meters of you gain minor evasion, reducing damage from area attacks by 10%. This is simply going to keep your group alive if you're a tank. The monster set, Ozizan the Inferno, adds magic recovery. Overhealing yourself or an ally grants them 42/72 armor for 1 second. Healing yourself or an ally grants them minor vitality for 1 second, increasing their healing received by 8%. This is probably going to be a good healer set if your group is struggling to stay alive. And I could see it using as a tank set also. So these are going to be fun to try out. And that will finally wrap it up. If you are still watching, you just rule. And that will finally wrap it up. If you're still watching, you just rule. I hope you maybe picked up some info that might be helpful, or some info that you didn't know about before. And please like and subscribe, because I'll be giving away a free Furnished Classic home once I hit 1,000 subscribers. And at the time of this video, we're almost halfway there. I'll do a random drawing, and one subscriber will get to pick out a classic home of their choice. So with all that said, stay cool, people.